Well, good afternoon, or good morning, or good night, wherever you guys are watching from. Thanks for joining me for another DTF Superstore live stream. We are into December, aren't we? 10 whole days. Christmas is just around the corner. I know that this time of year, actually probably in about 5 or 6 days, maybe a little bit later, all y'all are going to slow down a bit for business. So I know that December, later part of December, after all of the Christmas holiday type of shirts are done, it starts to slow down for you guys. So I hope that as we kind of ramp down or maybe ramp up to a break, I hope you guys are able to find some time to relax, to unwind a little bit during this holiday season. And yeah, so let's get into it today. Do me a favor, wherever you're watching from, let me know. Let the chat know where you're watching from. What part of the country, what part of the world are you watching from? We are going to dive into some ICCs and some digital factory deep dives. I will tell you, since the last live stream, yeah, so we had Thanksgiving, so it didn't work too many days that week. But the next week, last week, whew, I spent the entire week working in ICC profiles and stuff like that, working on a new machine. So Northwest Missouri, Northwest. So that's like near Kansas City-ish, or is Kansas City in the middle? Kansas City might be like kind of in the middle. But yeah, so what you guys are going to get from me this week, and I try to do stuff that's topical, that's helpful for you guys. But also like what I'm working with. And we really want to share with you guys what kind of things we're learning so that you guys can learn from it, and things of that nature. So it's really interesting. There's something called the Dunning-Kruger effect, which Neil deGrasse Tyson has mentioned it before. I actually mention it sometimes in my boot camps. But it's this idea that somebody who doesn't know a lot thinks they know a ton. And then as you learn more about a subject, you learn how little you actually know. I joke around all the time that I'm like, I think I got a handle on this. And then I learn something new and I'm like, I know nothing. And I'm like, oh, I think I got a handle on this. And then I'm like, oh, I know nothing. So this has definitely been one of those experiences working with ICCs. Now, we've done from the basics. We've done from the basics of like the NICS color profiling videos and stuff like that, which is really kind of a pretty basic rudimentary ICC profiling. It's still functional, it's just maybe not as advanced. And I'm getting to some pretty advanced levels, and I kind of want to share with you guys some of the things that I've picked up and learned, maybe that weren't wrong, but more in-depth knowledge now than maybe I had when we first started. So the first thing and the primary thing, I'm going to go click on my notes so I make sure I don't miss something. But early on in the process of profiling, in Digital Factory, they call it rough ink limits, but you're basically analyzing what your ink levels amounts are that you're going to use. And I used to think that it was like, and based on the instructions I was given, it was that you were trying to find just the right amount of ink, not too much, not too little, just kind of. And so when you would print the charts in Digital Factory, it was like A1, A2, or sorry, A1 through 7, B1 through 7, C1 through 7. I really didn't know what those actually meant or what they did. I just went off of the instructions I was given from Digital Factory, which is what we all do, right? And if you were flooding on the A, you would use a lower ink amount. And I was always trying to just like kind of optimize that so it looks nice, but not too saturated, anything like that. And what I've learned now is that you want to use more ink. You always want to use more ink, because even though with that rough ink limits, you are adjusting the volume of ink, there's also other spots, like when you have the overall max ink, which is like usually set up to 400. On the NICS color profiling video, I said set between 320 and 360. I've generally defaulted to 360 for the most part for like the last year or two or year or so. I've been doing this for 2 years. But what I found is that the ICC profile is also doing some ink limiting. So if you don't give enough ink to that ICC profiling scan chart, you're going to limit your gamut size because it's not going to produce some of the darker, deeper, saturated hues because you've set your ink limit too low. So what I've actually started doing is I will push my ink limits to the point they're just shy of flooding. What I mean by that is when I'm printing out my ICC chart and I'm looking at it from the backside, some of the darker colors like the blacks or the really, really deeper hues will be just on the edge of flooding. And that's just, since I started doing that, I'm getting a lot better, more robust profiles, regardless of the scanner I'm using. So even if you're using the NYX color scanner and not the X-Rite like what I'm using most of the time now, you're still getting way better results because you're giving the ICC software more to work with. So my rule of thumb now is just push those ink volumes, because the other thing is we're trying to, and I learned this from being in that print shop, we're trying to widen the kind of the working range of the printer. If we're not giving it a lot of ink, it may struggle with some colors, some hues, stuff like that. So when you're going from 0 to 100, coming down to these lower ranges are pretty minimal. Whereas if we can bring that ceiling up a little high, you've got a lot more variability in that range. So it helps out a ton. What's happening, NorCal Embroider? Thanks for being on the live stream. Appreciate you. So what I've done, and I'm going to come back to this point after I touch on my second point, I have always profiled with black shirts because in my brain, the black shirt is the one that is going to affect the colors the most. What I did not realize early on is that the white point of the ICC scan matters a ton. So when you print stuff on a black shirt, yes, these are the ones that are likely to fade because they're on a black shirt. But it means the white point is also not maybe as vibrant as it could or should be. So a lot of times I was setting the white ink amount for a black shirt, which is a lot of it, to protect the colors from the shirt color below. But what that does is it can potentially give you a lesser bright white point, which can affect the overall scans of the ICC. So I've started doing it on white shirts just so I can get a quality scan, and then I will come back later and address my white underbase for my black shirts. And what happens is, because I'm doing the ICC scan on a white shirt, I'm not using as much white ink to get a good white point. So now I can actually use more ink before it's trying to flood on those ICC scan charts, so I can get a more robust scan without flooding, because the white is a lot of what does the flooding. Now, you may find, I've been experiencing this, you may find that you still are flooding even without much white behind it. In that case, you need to back off your levels a bit. I've been running into that a little bit with this expanded color gamut printer. And a lot of that's because we're running 6 colors. So instead of 400% max ink, I have 800% max ink. So that's what I've been kind of like battling with a little bit. But if you start with a white shirt to build your profile, then your white point is perfection. And then the rest of the scan is great. And then we can go back in and adjust our white underbase settings. So yes, technically the workflow in Digital Factory is good. It's accurate. But I feel like it sometimes goes a little out of order for some advanced stuff. Now, I did talk to, I was on a call on Friday with product developer, head of like tech support at Digital Factory, which is Fiery now. I know everybody calls it CADlink, but it is just Digital Factory and Fiery now, which Fiery is now bought by Epson. It all sorts of craziness there. But bottom line is this is Digital Factory, and I was on a call with the head of product development, so the head of tech support, kind of chatting about some of these things that I was running into, problems I was having, solutions, stuff like that. And I came up with a couple like kind of fun creative solutions to address some of the points in the workflow that I'm not a huge fan of. So let's jump over to Digital Factory. Oops. Uno momento. I just realized I don't have my OBS turned on. Give me 1 second. Camera. There we go. All right. That looks right again. Okay, here we go. Let's jump into Digital Factory. And if you've ever done some profiling, you're going to see some familiar screens. So let's go devices. Do I have that other screen open? I do. All right. So we're just going to take one of these guys here. It really doesn't matter which one you pick. I'm just going to pick this, and we're going to create or full print mode creation, which is what you probably have experienced if you're using the built-in profiler. Now, I will, in this live stream, show you guys some tips and show you how to use the i1 profiler to calibrate your CMYK DTF printer. And then I'm going to clip this part of it and send it to a bunch of people that have been asking me those questions. So, so we're just going to testing. Whoops, wrong keyboard, Jeremy. This is the problem with using a PC and let's see. Hold on, I gotta let this comment fly because I'm a big fan. I wish it ran on a Mac too, but it is what it is. All right, back into what we were working on. So we're just going to call this testing live stream. Okay, so normally this is the workflow. So you set your max white ink. And again, like I said, if we were using black, we would use a lot more white ink. I actually am not even using this function anymore. But this is where you set all of your printer controls. Obviously, depending on what printer you have, you're going to have more controls. And then here's one that I've learned that has changed. I know on like the next video that we have about color profiling, I say you pick and choose or whatever. Generally, large dot only is totally sufficient because the small, medium, and large dot usage has to do with gradations, like between colors and stuff like that. So as you use like less and less cyan in the mix of a color, it uses smaller dots, so it does a better gradation of those transitions. And with white, you don't need to do any gradation. It's just white across the whole thing. So large dot only is not only what some power users have recommended to me, but what Digital Factory, actually the head of product development, has said, use large dot only. So I'm going to trust him and say use large dot only. But I don't, again, I have my own workflow for choosing your white underbase, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But then what we're seeing is, here we go. Normally, when you're trying to set your ink limits, your ink volumes and stuff like that, this is the chart it prints up. Give it a second to load. Joyce, you can absolutely rewatch this later. However, you don't get the experience of chit-chatting with me while you're on. Thanks for watching. But yeah, you can definitely watch this later. This is always, every one of our live streams are always up on, I see you're looking on Facebook, are always up on the YouTube channel. A lot easier to find there if you just go to DTF Superstore YouTube channel and click on the like live streams. I think it says live. You'll see all the old live streams. And I try to cut off the countdown at the beginning when I like finish off the video. Okay. Let's see. Where did it go? Hold on 1 second, y'all. I was messing with something else earlier, so I probably broke it. So give me just a second. But let's see. Here we go. So oh, y'all distract me with your comments, but yes. And then yeah. Hey, lots of people aren't subscribed. It's okay. Do me a favor. Like, subscribe. I love you. You sort of. I don't have any personal experience calibrating UVDTF, so I'm not sure about that. But really, calibrating an ICC should be a similar thing where you print out color swatches, you scan them, all that kind of stuff. But I would assume it's very, very similar. All right, let me get back in. I think I've got this back in. All right. My apologies. Manage print modes. You guys like those print modes? Those are quality right there. As you can tell, I do a lot of playing around with it. Okay. So we're going to skip past all these. Okay. This is what I wanted to touch on. So let's see if it'll load it in now. There it goes. Okay. So what this does is it loads in this little ink chart. Actually, usually it loads a bunch of them in. In this case, only loading one because I messed something up with it earlier when I was messing with it. But normally, this is how you set your ink limits, right? And so you got blue, red, and green. And why do you have blue, red, and green when it's a CMYK printer? Well, the function of this is to mix some of the colors together to see how they respond. And although it works kind of well, the reason I don't love it is because what you're setting with these ink limits is how the dots are being used and distributed. And it's kind of it's you don't realize what's happening in this process until you get deeper into Digital Factory. And so what's actually happening in here is it is choosing the distribution of small, medium, and large dots. So let me pop over here. I'm going to go over here into a different printer that I profiled. Here we go. So what it's actually doing is it's adjusting the variable dot setup. Now, this may be a menu that you're like, what is that thing? I don't know. I'm unfamiliar with it. So this is saying what like dot pattern. So this graph here is not like super, super helpful, but it kind of lets you know that up to a certain point it's using small, up to a certain point it's using medium, up to the full max it's using large, and how do those separate from each other. So if I do A1, that's literally using only small dots. So 255 is the max all the way up to the top. If I do C1, you see that we're going to start using some small dots up to like 87. I don't entirely know what these numbers mean. They're kind of just the way that it's like the whole 400% thing. But basically what you're looking at here is the distribution of how much of small, medium, large dots are used. So what I've found is that different colors will need different treatment. So the cyan may need a different number than the magenta than the yellow needs. So what I have done is I went in and I created a PDF here, or sorry, a PDF doc that has, in this case, this is the extended color gamut printer I'm working on. So I've actually got red, green, blue, orange, cyan, magenta, yellow, black. But I've made these spot colors. And then I've gone into the printer and forced it to output based on that spot color. So on that graphic, I've saved it as spot color or spot C for cyan, spot R for red. And then I've gone in to the printer and I'm managing the device spots. And I say, so the spot color name is spot C for cyan, and I'm going to tell it to output just 100 on cyan, 0 on magenta, 0 on yellow, 0 on black. And now, if I put in a spot color in Illustrator, into that PDF, it is going to force the printer to only print cyan. So basically what I'm doing is creating these swatches that only print one color, because normally when you put a file in, it prints multiple colors. And what I can do here is I can look and see, and all I do is when I load those files in, I'll get there. Oh, thanks, Joyce. Yeah, I didn't realize I wasn't sharing the screen when I was showing you that. Let me show you that again, because I'm a punk who didn't show you. I just talked about it. Thank you for the reminder, Joyce. Joyce is amazing. So devices, manage device spots. Don't worry about the spot colors. I'm going to type in, I'm going to add a new one right here. I'm going to call it spot, oops. Oh, geez, Louise. It just freaked out on me. So you put in that spot C. So in this case, let's do spot M for magenta. That's why it wasn't working, because I was using the wrong keyboard again. Spot M for magenta. Now you have to make sure you name it exactly the same on in Illustrator, and I'll show you how to do that here in just a moment. But you name it spot M, and we're going to make cyan 0, magenta 100, yellow 0, black 0, white 0. Perfect. So we're going to do that for each one of the colors. And then we want to print it out using the different dot patterns. So in this case, let's exit. I'm going to delete this real quick. And let me load in those graphics I made. So in this case, so I made multiple versions that have the names of what it is. So in this case, A1. So see how it's got, when I hover over it, see how it says spot colors there to the right? It says spot R, spot G, spot B, spot O. Again, because this is particular, I designed this file for the extended gamut printer I'm working on, playing with. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on this. And in my variable dot setup, I'm going to make them all, and I just like to do this to test. I like to make the white the same thing, but I'm going to go small, medium, large dots, A1. Perfect. Now I'm going to import. I can technically import them all at the same time. I'll do a couple of them here. I really should just move my Mac computer out, my Mac keyboard out of the way so I quit messing with it. Give it a second to load. Okay, cool. So C1, I'm going to double click on it. And I'm going to make the variable dot setup is going to be, let's make them all 1 again. Make 1 C1. And so on and so forth. Now, I will tell you, you probably aren't going to have to go past K to get a better result, but you can if you want to. And then you have two options. One, once they print out, just visually look at it, and you will see a difference as you scale up through them. I think you probably see a little bit more of a difference here on this one, just because the way that the computer will analyze it. But that orange looks a little different from, oh, come on. There we go. So that A orange looks a little different from the C orange. Now, you can do that, or you can use your spectrophotometer to scan the color. If you use the NIX, you can do that with your phone. You just download the NIX app and you can scan the color and see where or if there's a dramatic difference in the color of that orange, the saturation of that orange. So this is what I've started doing. So now when I'm building a print mode, I'm going to be using a different variable dot setup for different colors. Now, obviously, it's a bigger deal right now on this extended gamut one, but this is definitely a way that you can make sure your stuff's dialed in just perfectly. So basically, what I'm going to do now is instead of using the full print mode creation, I'm going to build out my print mode just kind of in here in the print mode manager. So when I start building out my new one, I'm going to be like, hey, I know this one worked pretty good. This DTF Superstore dark garment. Oh, wait, this is the different printer. Hold on one second. There we go. So I know this high quality 8-pass is pretty good. So I'm going to double click on it. And then I'm just going to go in and make some changes based off of the results and how they came out. So I would go in here and let's say I wanted cyan to be C1. I wanted magenta. Let's do this. We're going to bring out to 5 variable dot profiles. Now, it won't often be like all of them. Usually you have 1 or 2 that are a certain like number that works. But you can go in here and so number 1, we're going to make C1. 2 is going to be D1. And you can print more variations of this to kind of get it dialed in even a little closer. But for our practice right now, we're just going to do it like this. So, and then we're going to have an E1. And let's say there was a random like G. That's going to be pretty saturated, especially on the i3200 machines. You might be using G or M on some of the Mamakis. So just be aware of that. You need to print your stuff and your printer, but you might get some higher numbers just because I think the volume that those Epson DX7 print heads put out is a little bit lower than what the i3200 puts out. So then, like we said, cyan's going to be the C1. Let's say the yellow was the D1. The black was the E1 and the magenta was the weird outlier of the G1, right? And we want to make the white 5, which is large dot only. And now I've done my ink level set. So I can save that and it's going to remember those settings when I go to print my ICC chart or whatever that happens to be. Now I just realized my I1, my X-Rite is not plugged in. And so it's not going to let me do what I'm going to do. So uno momento. If you guys got questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat because I'll happily answer them. Or if you have questions about the process as we're going through it, I will answer those as well. Let me get my scanner. All right. Okay, got my scanner. Gonna plug it in. Okay. So that's how I'm setting my ink limits, my ink levels. When you want to, like after the whole process, because I'm going to skip to doing a slightly different thing. Once you are done with the process and you're wanting to optimize for a black shirt, so use that new ICC scan that you made on the white shirt. And then I want you to take that graphic, maybe this one, maybe something else. And I want you to put that graphic in a whole bunch of times in Digital Factory. And I want you to give different underbase amounts. Let me see if you can see. See how faded 10 is? Basically what I got is I got 100 to 99 to 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. So all the white underbase numbers. And you can either use your eye or again, use your spectrophotometer and find out where those colors start to change or that white point starts to change. And the way that you would do that, move a couple things around and I will show you. Let's pop back over to the PC. And I'm going to close out of this right now because I didn't duplicate that one. Side note, always copy. Don't ever like re-edit over a profile because you never know when you might make a mistake and you want to go back to that profile. That's why I have like 8 bajillion profiles on these machines, because I always do backups. So, okay, back to this. I'm going to open up the i1 Profiler app. While that's loading, I'm going to delete these guys because I don't want them right now. Okay, delete that. Okay. So this is the i1 Profiler app that comes with the i1. Okay, what I'm going to do is this is to check and see where your colors shift. So I'm going to use, in this case, the Spot Color Compare. Now, if you're using a NICS color scanner, you just simply hook up your NICS color scanner to the phone app and it will give you the same information. So I need to calibrate this real quick. Always calibrate. The NICS doesn't, this is why I don't think the NICS is maybe as accurate, is it doesn't force you to calibrate it before it tries to scan. And the i1 has a little white swatch in the middle of its like bed. Here, I'll show you real quick. It's got that little white swatch. And so it's calibrating it based off that white swatch. So I'm going to show you guys. Let's check 60%, and I'm checking on the white. So let me move the camera down so you can see what I'm doing. You're going to get a view of the desk. Here we go. So let's see if this will work. Yeah. All right. So you guys can kind of see. So I've got this shirt, and this is the 60%. Actually, let's start at the 100 just as an example. And I'm going to click on this button, and you're going to see that it should be scanning that color in. Okay. So I'm not really worried too much about what the color is actually saying, but if you look at that graph there, it's going to let me know if this next scan is a lower reflectance. Only a little bit. Let's check the 80. Nope, not a lot lower, but a little bit lower. Let's check the 70. Okay, that one kind of stepped down a hair. Let's check the 60. Okay, step down a little bit more. So now we're starting to lose that quality. So what that tells me is that the 70 is what my highlight white should be. So in Digital Factory, I would set my highlight white to 70. Let's check one of the colors. Let's check the yellow, as it's kind of the brightest of them. Let's pull. Let's look at the 80%. Let's check the 80% yellow. So click the button, we're scanning it in. Okay, you're going to look at that reflectance curve there. Now, you may not have, like if you don't have the X-Rite and you're using the NICS, you're not going to have that reflectance curve, but you will see when it dramatically starts to look darker. And with the lab value, which is what will show up on the NICS scanner, the LAB value, you're going to see that L number, which is the luminance of it, start to drop. So that's the way that one looks. Let's check the next one. Oop, not much of a change. Okay, cool. Scan that one. Oop, that was kind of a dramatic change. Let's check this next one. Oh, yeah, and we're starting to go down. So I would do 60% because there wasn't a huge change, maybe a little bit of a change. 70, 80. Yeah, a little bit of a change, but you see it start to hit at like 60. So I'd actually probably do like 65 as my general underbase. But just to show you what happens, let's go down here and scan the 10. This is the 10% underbase. Watch that reflectance curve. Boom, goes bye-bye, right? So that is kind of how you would analyze and decide what you're going to do for your white underbase. That's probably the creepiest pan up from my torso, y'all. I'm sorry about that. That was kind of awkward, but I didn't know how else to get the camera back up on me. All right, so now that I've figured out what my underbase settings are. Now I go in and put them into Digital Factory, and I'm using the tools, whether it's the NICS spectrophotometer or the X-Rite I1. I'm using that tool to technically tell me where the colors are starting to change, not just using my eyes, because it can be tricky looking at it with your eyes. You're like, I'm not sure what I'm seeing. So that's kind of how I do my workflow of processing. Now, the final thing, and then we'll go into how to use the X-Rite I1 profiler in Digital Factory without having the full print mode creation, without using the full print mode creation, because again, I think the I1 profiler, it's designed to build profiles, right? That's its design. Digital Factory is designed to do a whole bunch of things. So, but before I do that, I'm going to talk about verifying the results. So when you have built your profile, it's good to use some of the test prints or test pages that are in Digital Factory. That's a great way to verify. So let's pop back over there and open up Digital Factory. And those are located in the tools, devices, print test page. And then if you scroll down, you're going to see some different profile test charts. Don't worry that it says extended, it's just a bigger chart, but it'll give you a good indication. If we load this file in, we're going to have some good skin tones, some good saturated colors. Like that's what's being put into this chart. So there you go. So you're going to get some light skin tones, some dark skin tones, some blues, some bright saturated colors, all that kind of stuff. That's how you're going to verify your print mode or verify your profile looks okay. This is good, but it's not perfect. So what I want you to do is, if you're building out your own profiles, I suggest you go to Color Logic's website and download the app called Copra, C-O-P-R-A, capital C, lowercase o, capital P, lowercase r, capital A. Let me pop onto it and show you it. Let's see. There it is. So this is Copra, and this will let you analyze your gamut. So in this case, this is my Roadrunner high-res gamut, or that I created for our Roadrunner 2, and you can take a look at the gamut and see what's going on with it. Now, there's some little outliers here that I definitely would want to go back in and reprofile. Maybe I mess up on the scan, but this is very. Now, I'm going to show you one that got screwed up. Find it here. Actually, let's do this. This is an extended test I did, and that definitely extended some oranges and greens out. But see how it's like the polygons are all odd. It just looks odd, and I'm not getting any additional here or not much here. So something was up with that scan, which is part of how I knew something was up with it. It kind of looked right when I printed the profile page, but when I looked at it here, stuff was messed up. If we go to, let's try this one. Yeah. This is another one. It's like something's up here. It's not smooth. There's other information here, like, well, depending on how you created it, you will get some other information in here about like what colors were used in it. So I think this one has colorants. Yeah. So it talks about what the lab value was for what those colors were scanned in. And this is how I actually discovered that I had a problem with one of my profiles, is it thought it was scanning red, but it was actually scanning the orange color. And so again, even though you might be able to get it to print and look proper, it's best to verify your results. Now, if you're looking at this going, Jeremy, this means nothing to me. One of the ways you can check that is by checking with like a good standard profile that's maybe out there. Now, this is, oh, here's one that looked ugly here. Let me show you this one. Look at that. What is going on there, Jeremy? So if I go to, I think it's the chroma checker. Yeah, so this is like gigantic. But see how it's like very consistent? There's not these weird like outliers that kind of stick out. So you want your gamut to kind of have some consistency like this. That's lets you know that you've scanned it properly, that you've not messed something up in the process. So I encourage you to test by doing a test print to verify, but also checking that data in like Copra to allow you to analyze that. The I1 Profiler app also lets you do that as well. So you can check that gamut against even other gamuts, like to compare. So those are good tools. Now, this is a section I'm literally going to clip and send to folks that have been bugging me about this for the better part of a week or two. And all of this work is me trying to find the best way to do an ICC profile, not only so I can teach you all to do it, but we are working on offering a remote profiling service to where folks that maybe have a smaller print shop can afford a like $3,000 I1 profiler and all the other stuff that goes along with it to help them profile their machines. We're working on something along those lines, but developing, better understanding to know how to like tweak with stuff. So this video is for all the folks that want to know how to use the I1 profiler to create the ICC, not Digital Factory. So here's what you do. I'm going to delete this. You're going to go to your I1 Profiler app. You're going to go to, change this to a CMYK printer, and you're going to start with linearization. So you're going to create a linearization chart. Now, I know from experience that on these paper size Super B, it's roughly 13 by 19, I think, and I can get about 430 swatches on a page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot for that, actually 481, I think it is, which I think was 52, or is that 60? Yep, it's 60. Okay. 481 swatches. Now what this does is this allows me to scan. It's going to have black, cyan, magenta, yellow, each one of those in an individual square and of varying percentages. Now, I think that this linearization is a little bit more robust than what is in Digital Factory. So I like to use this linearization. I'm going to go next. I'm going to do, like I said, this Super B size. So I've got one of one. If you're using a different I1, like if you don't have the Plus, but you have just the I1 Pro 3, your chart may be different in size, but you can play around with that. But I like this because it goes onto one shirt nicely. But I'm going to save this as a TIFF. So I'm going to save this as a TIFF file, wherever the heck you want to save it. I really don't care. As you can see, I've already saved this exact chart multiple times. And then you're going to go into Digital Factory, use the print mode that you have set up your dot sizes properly in. So whatever that is, make sure you use that one. And then load that file in. There it is. Okay. And then we're going to double click on it. Now, we're not going to change anything about the underbase, the processing. All that is stuff that we're either setting up later or have already set up. Make sure your CMYK color adjustments, your linearization here, are lines and not curves. If you're using an existing print mode that was built 100% in Digital Factory, there will be some curvy lines. Just click on the cyan, hit reset to default. Click on the magenta, reset to default. You want these to be a straight line, okay? Then you're going to go down to the ICC profile. And this is the part that was confusing for me when I first tried it. You think you want to turn off like everything. Literally turn off this, 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 and this. That's all. It's not going to do any of this other stuff. Don't worry about it. Just uncheck those 4 things. And now when you import this file, it's not going to have any kind of ICCs or calibration or conversion over the top of it. Click OK and print this. You're going to print this. You're going to press it on the shirt. And you're going to scan it using the I1 scan tool. So you're going to open I1 back up, and you're going to hit next. And you're going to scan these with your I1. Once you scan this, it's going to create a linearization. You're going to save it as whatever the printer is, linearization, right? So then after this is all done and you're back at the home screen, we're just going to pretend that we're back at the home screen. You're going to go to profiling. And before you do anything, you want to add the linearization file that you just scanned. So I'm going to put in Roadrunner high res. You will see it change some of the colors in here based off of what that linearization data was. Now, the size of your scan is based off of two factors. One, how much time you have and how accurate you want it to be. Anything under like 2,500 is going to be fairly accurate. This is why the X-Rite is a little more powerful than the NIX, is because the NIX in Digital Factory only gives you like 80-something swatches. This is going to, baseline, I wouldn't do less than 2,000. I'm a monster, and I like having a good, strong, robust ICC. So I actually go all the way up to, I think it's 3888, which, when we go to the size, you're going to see it perfectly fits on 8 pages. But you don't want your chart to look like this. You want to scramble your patches. And the reason you do this is because it helps the sensor register the different colors better. And when you have colors that are very similar, it doesn't do as good of a job scanning them as it will when the colors change kind of constantly throughout the scan. So I'm sure it has something to do with like some algorithm with the scanner or something like that, but this is the way you want to print it. So you're going to scramble your patches, however many pages you want to do. This patch set, which is 8 pages, 8 big pages, takes me about 35 to 40 minutes to scan in. So take that into account. Don't worry about your ink limiting. We're already doing that within the software. Like we've already dealt with that. The patch weighting, I've played with this a little bit. I've not gotten necessarily better results by moving it up or down. I think it has to do with the volume of light patches versus dark patches. I will say that more often than not, the DTF printers struggle getting accurate darker colors. So if anything, I would lean the patch weighting more toward dark, but leave it at 0. I've had great results with it at 0. You're going to click next. And just like before, you're going to save them as a TIFF. Now, it is going to give you the option to save as an EPS. Don't do that. Save it as a TIFF. It works perfectly fine. I've never noticed the Adobe PDF in there. Maybe it's not working on different software, but I've not noticed the PDF before. But I've always used TIFF with great results. So you're going to save those TIFFs, and you're going to go back into Digital Factory, and you're going to load those TIFF files in. So in this case, here we go. And you're going to load all those TIFF files in, and it will take a little while for them to populate, or maybe it not. Well, good Lord. I don't know that my PC's ever worked that quickly. And then you want to go through each one of these guys, and you're going to have to do the same steps we did before. You might be thinking to yourself, Jeremy, why don't you just save a new print mode with those unchecked? Well, it doesn't always uncheck them. So it's just better if you do it this way, because then you're verifying each one is set properly. So generally, you're probably okay with all these settings. You're not going to need to double check them, except for this linearization one. Make sure it's flat. But on the ICC profile, you just, again, make sure all 4 of these dials are unchecked and click OK. You want to do that to each one of the files that are in here and then print them. Press them on a shirt and scan them. Once you have scanned them all in, and again, it will take a while. You go to the next screen here, scan them. If your software happened to close or crash on you, or you didn't have time to scan it after you printed it, just put in the same patch number of 3888 and the same size of sheet, and it will be the exact same layout of squares every time. I hope that makes sense. So you're going to scan everything in. You're going to answer the questions. Just do standard illuminance, D50. This part, your black setting, I'm going to tell you, and I've played with a few settings, but overall, this is going to be a good baseline. Use enhanced black generation, use intelligent black, leave the rest of this the same. On your tables, use optimize quality. It's going to make a bigger size file, but it's going to optimize for quality. That's what we want. and then you leave the rest of this the same. And click next. And then you save your profile's name. It will take a while to save that profile down. And then what you're going to do is in Digital Factory, you're going to go to Print Mode Manager. That the print mode that you were using, you would just want to make a copy of it, and you're going to say like new ICC, click OK, double click on it, and now you're going to go in and replace that ICC profile with the new one you just created. Now, it is going to ask you where to save it when you save the file, or it might default to saving it to like downloads, or actually it might save the system folder. Depends on how you have it set up. But basically what you want to do is you want to move that file into the printer's profile folder here. It's going to make it easier for you to find it later. But basically you're going to load that in. So let's go here. Let me do this real quick for you. So let's say that it's over here in my drive. I've got a few ICC sitting in here. Let's go Roadrunner. There we go. So Roadrunner ICC. So what I want to do is this is where on all digital factories, this is where your ICCs are saved. Go to your C drive, digital factory, RIP, system, C-links, and then this is the printer we're using for this particular one. You might be using like the Mamaki, whatever. Double click on that, and you're going to basically just drag that file, the ICC file, and drop it into this folder. It's already there. So when you go back to open, just open up that Raptor 2. You're going to see that Roadrunner high res in there. Double click on it, and it's going to be right there. And hit save. That is how you take a X-Rite i1 profiler and create an ICC profile that is really robust and strong. So, yeah, a little bit of a niche topic today, but I hope that you guys found it helpful. Maybe if you aren't using X-Rite, but you just wanted a little bit better understanding of ICC, I hope it helps understand a little bit more. This stuff is deep, man. I am always blown away by just how much more is there. I'm constantly learning new stuff about it. It's one of the things I probably like that I enjoy about all this stuff is I'm constantly learning new stuff, and I love learning new stuff. Like it's a good day when I've learned something new. Oh, we got some good comments and questions. Trying to unlock. Sometimes it's hard, but we're getting there. And there's some other little nuanced things that I'm trying to put together in a nice, concise thing because I've learned a lot of weird little nuances. Yeah, it's pretty deep. And I literally thought I was drowning last week. It was pretty hilarious. My wife's like, "You okay?" I came home from work. I'm like, "I'm exhausted," because like my brain is just fried from trying to understand. It's like I'm trying to share with you guys what I learned, but what I was dealing with last week was trying to figure some of this stuff out. And it's just like, what is happening? Because there's different areas that like can affect the functioning of different parts of the software. It's crazy. Is there a max number of blocks to scan? I think your name is pretty apropos for that question. Yeah, you can. Is there a max? I don't know. Let's see. Let's see how big it'll go. I think it'll lock you out at like 6,000 something. Let's see. Profiling. Let's go. Let's go all the way to the top. Yeah, 6,000. So 6,000. Now 3888 takes me 40 minutes to scan. So that's going to take you like just shy of an eternity. You might die before you're done scanning. I'm just kidding. Anything over 2,000 is going to be a pretty strong scan. Closer to 4,000 is going to be really great. 6,000 is definitely getting a little bit. I mean, obviously, it's not going to do anything wrong with it. It's going to give more data points, but it's what your time's worth. So, yep. And like I said, rewatch. It will be on YouTube. if you guys just go on there and search, or go to our YouTube channel and click on live, and you'll be able to see the stuff played back if you're watching over on Facebook. I know a lot of you guys are watching on YouTube. StreamYard does let me know where you guys are watching, like from YouTube or Facebook and stuff like that. So, yeah. Well, guess what, guys? Do you know what 2 weeks from today is? Christmas Eve. You know who's not going to live stream on Christmas Eve? This guy. So I think what I might do is I might put something together and just have it just pop up as a video for you guys on Christmas. But this year has been interesting. A lot of changes. San Francisco Bay Area. Did your Niners win yesterday? They were looking pretty good. My Cardinals lost big time. This year's been an interesting one. Just a lot of changes and like different role for me. And we've been doing the live stream every other week since the summer, early in the summer. So I appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate you guys commenting. I love the interaction. I love the questions. Don't stop with the questions. It's great because it gives me questions to answer, things that I haven't thought about. Also, if like a bunch of people have the same question, maybe we should find an answer for it. But yeah, if I don't pop on for anything else for the rest of the year, I hope you guys have had a great 2024. Again, I know that a lot of you guys are going to slow down a little bit, especially between Christmas and New Year's, as not a lot of people are ordering custom garment decoration. But I also know a lot of you guys do other things too. So I just encourage you guys to spend some time with your family if you got them close. If not, find some friends to share it with. But this is my favorite time of the year. I absolutely love it. And yeah, I hope you guys, your 2025 is huge. I'm looking forward to it. I think we've got some great things on the horizon. And yeah, I think that's going to do it. Signing off for live streams for 2024. Love you guys. I'll see you in 2025. Bye.